Welcome back to another episode of the Fat and Gay Texan. This is Jake, your host for this evening, and pretty much every evening, as I do this by myself, at least for now. This is a show where we talk about anything and everything because that's what we want to do. We don't throw political correctness out the window because we never let it in the front door to begin with. On this episode, we're going to answer a question that's probably never been asked, which is, have man caves and kitchen islands ruined the affordable housing dream in America? The short answer to that question is they're a big part in it. They play a much bigger role than what we allow ourselves to believe. Now, there are many other factors such as inflation, demand, locations, but we're going to be speaking in general terms for this episode. In 1950, in America, the average housing price was around $7,500. That house would come in at around just under 900 square feet. In 2020, the average housing price in America was $336,000. That home coming in at 2,229 square feet, 2.25% larger than the home in 1950. If we took the same 1950s house, just made every room bigger, didn't add any extra rooms or bathrooms or anything else, just the square footage increase alone would take that house today and make it $177,000. The same house at the same size, if you just factor in inflation, would be $80,000. So more than doubling the size of the house has, guess what? More than doubled one factor in what drives housing costs in this country. The other thing to consider as well is that a lot of things we have nowadays, they did not include in homes in the 1950s. Most homes in the 1950s did not have garages. If you had anything at all that was covered, you had a carport. Bigger homes require bigger equipment. Most homes have multiple HVAC units. Some homes in the 1950s didn't even come with air conditioning. A lot of times you would have window units or not at all. Our bigger homes have multiple bathrooms. As we know, bathrooms are one of the more expensive things you can do to a house. Plumbing is not cheap. Bathroom fixtures are not cheap. Dishwashers weren't a thing in most homes in the 1950s. They are standard fare now. Electrical wiring, minimal. One or two plugs a room, you're good to go. We didn't depend on electricity as much as we do then as we do now. Our homes now, for the most part, all these new homes are internet ready. God forbid we have anything other than granite countertops. And most of our new homes they include irrigation systems as part of that. These things were not only not common, they were very rare in the 1950s. So we've made the homes double the size. We've added rooms, we've added expenses, we've added luxuries to them that we now, as a society, basically say, oh, I can't live in that house because it doesn't have granite countertops, or I can't live in that house because it doesn't have a dishwasher. I am one of those people, by the way. I have to have a dishwasher. So a lot's happened to the American home. They're bigger. They have more accessories. And then we move on to certain factors that, for one reason or the other, we as a society have agreed upon that are necessary. In the county I live in, or the city I live in, it is a requirement that a certain percentage, I think it's 70% of the home, any new home, have some sort of brick or masonry construction as its exterior surface. You could not nowadays come in and build the little wooden matchbox homes that we had in the 1950s. Most homes in that era were pier and beam. They had a basement, great. In Texas, where I'm from, basements aren't really a thing. So now we have the increased cost of concrete. For some unknown reason, we've decided that we need giant, huge windows all over the place, something that was not all that popular in the 50s. We also, most municipalities, you can't have a chain link fence anymore. Chain link fences are way more affordable than the wooden fences or the wrought iron fences that we're required to have. All these things add up. So we can blame inflation. We can blame demand. But when you look at all these things that we didn't have 70 years ago, not to mention the homes are twice as big, the average home is twice as big now as it used to be, it starts to make more sense why home prices are more inflated now than they've ever seemed to be in our past, why they're more unattainable. Now, this will take a change, not only in taste, but in city codes and ordinances. A lot of cities have minimum square foot requirements. Why? Maybe because they make more tax money off the bigger homes. But why? Why do we have all these building codes and restrictions that merely they're not for safety, they're for nothing. They're for aesthetics, they're for tax purposes, increasing property value, but they do nothing for people who would just like that 900 square foot home size from the 1950s. There's nothing wrong with that. Even if we modernized that 1950s home with the same size, but we did include things like dishwashers, granite countertops, everything else, that it would still be well under $100,000 cheaper than the average home being built in America today. We've gotten too concerned with appearances. We've gotten too concerned about tax revenue from homes. These things have all hurt the average American that cannot afford to purchase a home anymore. We need to get back to reality. Not everything can be a McMansion. Not everything can have a limestone front. You do not need a man cave. God forbid. You don't need a she shed. You don't need, every kid does not need their own room. You want an affordable house. We've got to change how we're building homes. We've got to bring it back down to the basics. Otherwise, it's not going to change. Not going to change until we are ready to change with it. This is a short episode, but I hope you got something out of it. It was intriguing to kind of look at all these other factors, things we don't consider about all the time. That was bad English. Things we don't consider all the time. See, I don't edit these things. I do them in one cut because this is a new podcast and we do not have the technology to go back and edit. At least I haven't learned how to do that yet. So forgive the flubs because there will be flubs, but that's okay because we're just talking as friends and that's how we run this show. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening. This is Jake, and I hope you tune in to our next episode. Have a great day.